how is this helping your business achieve its sustainability goals?
Yeah, we're an employee-owned company, so it's so important to us that we create value and minimize waste for all of our employee owners. We're really led by that tenet.
Recording in progress.
So good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody here in Glasgow, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning to folks who are joining us online to dive into this important question of how collaboration can take us from commitments to implementation. So my name is Mark Conway, and I'm proud to welcome everybody here on behalf of my organization, the Stanley Center for Peace and Security, as well as our hosts, WWF, the U.S. Climate Action, and all of the Alliances for Climate Action. For those of you not familiar with the Alliances for Climate Action, ACA brings together climate leaders across every level in countries around the world to accelerate national processes towards transition. The alliances do this by scaling up climate action from participating subnationals, marshaling domestic awareness, public support, and mobilizing a unified call for ambitious climate targets and policies in their countries. ACA also connects national alliances with each other at a global level in order to expand the groundswell of climate action from the bottom up. To date, alliances have been announced in 9 countries, accounting for over 23% of the world's emissions. Those countries are the US, Japan, Vietnam, South Africa, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Australia, and as of yesterday, Chile. They account for over 6,000 institutions mobilized in support of climate ambition and action in those countries. And so the Stanley Center is proud to be working with WWF here at COP26 to host these events. WWF implements and convenes these with global partners at Avena Foundation, C40 Cities, Climate Action Network International, CDP, the Climate Group, and We Mean Business, in addition to leading partners at the national level and thousands of members and institutions at these alliances. So together, signatories of these alliances, the subnational governments, companies, investors, higher education institutions, cultural institutions, faith groups, healthcare, and indigenous federations commit to taking bold climate action individually and collaboratively, engaging the public on the urgency and opportunity of climate action in their countries, using a unified voice to advocate for ambitious climate policies for the inclusive and just transition to net zero in their countries. Alliances for Climate Action is also an accelerator partner of the UN-backed Race to Zero campaign and has amplified the call to pursue credible and ambitious targets of halving emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050 or sooner. So we know in this decade the world needs to deliver on decarbonization to stay on a safe 1.5C pathway. And over the last week, we've heard encouraging signs and bold commitments by national governments here at COP26. In fact, we saw IEA analysis that shows net zero commitments, if they were all acted upon, could enable the world to limit warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius. But those commitments aren't enough. We need delivery, and there's no one actor that's going to be able to do this alone. So we must continue to enhance our ambition and not lose sight of 1.5C. We've seen how the kind of leadership that can deliver on climate action from cities, states, regions, businesses, and others. What Alliances for Climate Action has demonstrated is how those actors can go further together, connecting with one another across national networks to build their own ambitious commitments. The alliances also demonstrate a new kind of climate leadership that goes beyond just making bold commitments. And speaking of climate leaders, I'm delighted to introduce the first round of speakers that we have joining me up here, who will explain a bit about how they're radically collaborating to decarbonize the economic sectors in their own country. So I'd like to welcome to the stage here first Inés Sáenz Negrete, Vice President of Inclusion, Social Impact, and Sustainability at Tec de Monterrey in Mexico. Sergio Graf, Secretary of Environment and Territorial Development with the Government of Jalisco in Mexico. And Sarah Sutton, CEO of Environment and Culture Partners in the US. But Inés, if we could start with you. Tec de Monterrey is one of the leading research institutions in Mexico and has a 1.5C aligned climate action plan. And looking at some of the interviews that you've given, you talk about the need for a cultural shift to address our climate crisis. And I wonder if you could share with us a bit about how you see Tec de Monterrey doing that, and how the Alliance for Climate Action is helpful in that regard.
Okay, Mark, thanks for your question. Well, I'd like to say it is a great honor for me to be representing my university, Tec de Monterrey, and also Mexico's Alliance for Climate Action. I am delighted to share this panel with Sarah and Sergio, such inspiring climate leaders. So I would like to give a context. I have 4 minutes, but I've calculated everything, I hope. Tecnológico de Monterrey, for the audience who is not related to our university, Tec de Monterrey is one of Mexico's and Latin America leading private non-for-profit universities. Today, we have 26 campuses throughout Mexico, and our institution educates 100,000 students. It's a big university. So for decades, Tec has engaged in climate action, both in operations and research, but it was 2 years ago, in 2019, that we reached a turning point in our climate ambition, because we were invited as a strategic partner of the ACA Mexico. So we became a Race to Zero signatory, where we established our carbon neutrality target by 2039 at the latest. So all these efforts led us to launch this past April our ambitious sustainability and climate change plan to 2025, aligned with the 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Agreement. So our plan has 6 pillars. Culture is at the center because culture has the purpose to connect, to guide, and enable the other 5 pillars that are mitigation, adaptation, research, education, and outreach. So we have placed culture as an intersecting pillar in our strategy to overcome the obstacles and challenges entailed by this climate crisis. For example, we need to redefine our beliefs and values. We need to break with the paradigms of what our priorities are, how we operate, our day-to-day culture, and how we choose to invest our resources. So our commitment and ambition required leadership at the highest level of the institution. Just last year, Tec de Monterrey created a new vice presidency, the vice presidency that I'm honored to represent, the vice presidents of inclusion, social impact, and sustainability, reporting directly to the university president. So as a university, we're committed to climate action. This shows a commitment to climate action. We aspire to achieve various goals. Of course, our role as educators, trainers and makers of leaders with a sustainable mindset. Our campuses operations, they have to operate in a sustainable way. And a leadership role in society, aspiring to be an unbiased but very proactive actor to promote climate action. So we know that we have the capacity to use our voice to inspire and mobilize other state and non-state actors. We assume the role of accelerator of the Race to Zero campaign, and we are making efforts to invite other universities in Mexico and Latin America to assume ambitious climate targets. And I'll share 2 success stories. Well, together with the Alliance for Climate Action in Monterrey, we successfully invited and adhered 4 municipalities to set their own 1.5 climate target and to join Race to Zero. I'm talking about Monterrey, as you heard it by Mayor Colosio here yesterday, San Pedro Garza Garcia, Santa Catarina, and San Nicolas. And we also successfully invited and adhered the government of the state of Nuevo León to join Race to Zero. We also have plans to invite the Mexican private sector. And I'd like to talk about of an inclusive recycling project co-funded by NOAA, FEMSA Foundation, and Tec de Monterrey. We work with vulnerable communities around our campus in Monterrey, with the city and state governments, with recycling companies and civil society organizations. So, well, just to wrap it up, the cultural shift resides in constant and permanent systems of collaboration for climate action, both inside our institution and, of course, outside. So collaboration magnifies our capacities and voices. Only through collaboration we will achieve our climate goals. So let's do the work together.
Thank you, Inez. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear about what you've been doing and how that sort of collaboration can take it further, and great to have heard the announcement yesterday from Monterrey as well. So Sergio, we know that the state of Jalisco also has a 1.5C aligned climate action plan, which is commendable and I think a great example of bottom-up climate action. Could you tell us a bit about the target and your state collaboration with actors such as in a sort of place-based way, such as the Alliance for Climate Action Guadalajara, and how that can help accelerate your implementation of your targets?
Yes, thank you. And thanks again for your kind invitation. Being part of Guadalajara Alliance for Climate Action has brought us a great opportunity to learn from WWF representatives and build synergy with our neighbors. It's very important work with Monterrey and Nuevo León state for us. And I'm glad to be again with ACA and with a new results and to share with you. Jalisco has developed an integral climate action model which has instruments for the long-term vision, such as the Climate Action State Strategy and the Metropolitan Climate Action Plan of Guadalajara that will be receive an hour of the climate conference in these years. Another for the necessary immediate actions as a state program, a climatic state program, the regional and municipal programs for climate action. We achieved 77 municipalities having a municipal action program and 9 regional action programs. But also we have recently developed more innovative instruments such as our carbon budget and our decarbonization pathway, with neutral carbon targets by 2050 and advances over 30% in 2030. However, we know that the implementation of these plans won't ever be real if we don't build a strong and inclusive alliance to achieve our net zero commitment that recently the governor signed in Mexico. Recognizing the value of alliance to meet targets, Jalisco has launched one of great importance recently in order to advance on climate objectives. Jalisco's Enterprise Alliance for Climate Action, which integrates government with the productive sector with a common vision, a sustainable and a carbon neutral development. Until the recent event to present this alliance, we have the participation of 25 associations from the productive sector, including the main chambers of our state. In addition, 21 enterprises have signed this climate action commitment, and they will be in their greenhouse gases emission inventories. Associations and enterprises or businesses will work hand by hand to strengthen their technical capacity and to establish science-based targets to the carbon neutral in 2050. They will also periodically report the advance through climate transparency principles of this alliance. We will sign an agreement with CDP to develop a platform to register this action with this platform. All of this has been possible thanks to the sensibility of the productive sector representatives in our state and the clear recognition that sustainability is linked to competitiveness, especially on the international level. I think everybody is knowing that we have to act now and reduce the risk or investment in their enterprises, and will be most competitive in the future in the economy if the enterprise go in this way. Nationally, Jalisco is recognized as the agroalimentary giant of Mexico. Our industrial and technology sector are leaders and keep growing. With this alliance, we will gain in innovation, entrepreneurship, and inversion attraction for our state. To ensure a healthy and effective development of this alliance, we designed a governance mechanism, so the decision-making process has every representation with an enterprise council and association council, each of which have participation on the executive and main council of this initiative. At this COP26, as a high-level international level, we expect to find new allies to strengthen our enterprise alliance and facilitate its scalability on the national level, since there is a lot of interest from other state governments to work together. We have in a Mexican climatic community integrated for the 32 states of the country to don't let anybody behind, to have everybody have capacities to attend the climate action in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergio. Yeah, that's fantastic, and thank you for diving in a little bit on what that looks like in Jalisco. And And Sarah, we heard a little bit earlier from Inez about the importance of cultural change to address the climate crisis. You actually represent a consortium of museums on the vanguard of environmental leadership. Could you tell us a bit about how museums and cultural institutions are working to address the climate crisis, and whether collaborations with other institutions is something that helps to take things further?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So do you know there are 35,000 museums, zoos, gardens, and historic sites in the United States? America's all-in signatories from that group include Phipps Conservatory in Pittsburgh, which has a living building and a LEED Platinum building. The Minnesota Science Center, which has achieved its 50% target of carbon reduction for 2030, 9 years ahead of schedule, doing it this year. And then places like Strawberry Bank Museum in New Hampshire, which is helping communities learn how to deal with sea level rise living in historic structures. Now, did you know that 800 million people visit those museums in the United States in a year? That's 800 million consumers, voters, and local decision makers. And we know from our social science research that they trust museums to tell them about what's going on in their daily lives, what are the social issues, and to advise them on how to respond. We also know that they trust us more than media and federal government. But that trust is fragile. Only if we are doing climate action work will they believe us to tell them how they should take action. So though our footprint might be sort of small, it's a really important one. So the US federal government has a climate action plan of 50 to 52% reduction. That's an ambitious plan, but it's achievable, especially if all of us participate. So that's why the cultural sector is part of America is all in. So I'll tell you 2 ways we're doing this work. The Biden-Harris administration in September granted $600,000 in a national leadership grant to a consortium that's New England Museum Association, Environment and Culture Partners, and the Rockstars New Buildings Institute. They're creating a blueprint for climate action in cultural institutions, where 148 institutions are going to take steps within 2 years on climate action. We'll end up with a blueprint. We'll also end up with our first carbon footprint, so we can actually measure how much we're helping the US achieve its NDC. And the other one that I'm super proud of came about because of America is all in. So a private funder, an arts foundation, reached out to the other rock stars in energy efficiency, Rocky Mountain Institute, or RMI, for help in distributing $5 million to do climate work, energy efficiency, and clean energy generations at museums in the US, art museums. RMI, as part of the Secretariat here, reached out to Environment and Culture Partners to help connect with all of those museums and to distribute this funding. The board of the Helen Frankenthaler Climate Initiative agreed to distribute the full $5 million that they planned to spend in 3 years in the first year. So in August, we gave 78 institutions money to do work right now. And then, and this almost makes me cry to think about, the board gave another $5 million for the next 2 years to do more of that work. That is the greatest investment in the United States in cultural institutions privately doing this work. It wouldn't happen without something like All In. And those coalitions around the world are so effective. There's something called the Climate Heritage Network that actually got its start with the support of Historic Environment Scotland. It is a cultural association around the world. And then there's the Alliances for Climate Action that bring all of the coalitions together. So I hope more of you will join us and that all of you will put cultural institutions in that just the way Inez has. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for your great remarks, your terrific work, and an introduction to kind of how these things can work. We'll have another panel here, and I'd like to introduce our moderator, Emmanuel Pinal, who is the Director of Diplomacy at C40 Cities, who will be joined on stage with some more ACA folks.
Thank you, Mark, for the introduction, and thank you to WWF for inviting C40 to join and moderate this panel. And I want to start by a congratulation and a thank you to all the persons here representing the Alliances for Climate Actions, and to say how much I personally admire the work you're doing, because your mobilization at the national level for the Paris Agreement is so important. We all know the Paris Agreement is a global framework, but its success or failure will be done at the national level. And it fully depends on the ability and the willingness of national government to set ambitious targets to halve emissions by 2030 and get to net zero by 2050. And this can be done only if there is a mobilization of the whole of society. And this is what you are doing through the Alliances for Climate Action. So thank you and congratulations. I think this kind of mobilization is really the future of climate action, and the present too, because it's already happening. And it should hopefully expand to more than 9 countries in the future. And C40 is really proud to be a global partner to this effort. And I am also very proud and happy to introduce the 4 speakers that are with us today, representing 4 alliances for climate action in Japan, Argentina, Vietnam, and the United States. I'm going to start with the first question to our first panelist, Mr. Masahiro Takahashi, General Manager of Environmental Group NWK Line Japan, representing Japan Climate Initiative, I think one of the first alliances for climate action that was created. So, Mr. Takahashi, you are a member of one of the largest shipping and logistic company in Japan, and you've been taking a lot of action and okay, I will continue. I don't understand what they're saying. You've been pretty active, engaging with on different fronts, including the International Maritime Organization, which is a different agenda than the Paris Agreement. Very interesting action there. But obviously, we want to commend and highlight the work you're doing now inside the Japan Climate Initiative in particular, and have you explain us how you are working with the Japan Climate Initiative, how you are pushing with other actors for higher ambition in Japan national climate policy, and how this in turns is helping your own company to deliver its climate goals.
Thank you for introduction. My name is Masahiro Takahashi, but nobody in my company called me Masahiro because it's too long, and so just everybody call me Max. And I am a general manager of the environment group in NYK, and at this title that I'm taking a chairman's position of the GAG task force of Japan Ship Owners Association. So all the shipping companies in Japan are members. And so, we are Japan is a very unique country, as the numbers and tonnage of the Japanese ship owners is second largest in the world, next to Greece. And we are the third largest economic country on a GDP basis, next to United States and China, meaning that we have cargo, as Japan has no natural resources. So we import a lot of LNGs and so on. And also that we have the third largest shipbuilding capacity in the world, next to China and South Korea. And total of the three shipbuilding companies in East Asia is more than 90% of the world shipbuilding capacity. As you explained, as you said, that the shipping industry is not in a part of Paris Agreement, but IMO is working together with UNFCCC for the decarbonization. But so that not just to, say the dream, but to really make it happen, that, it has to be the realistic, the plan. And so without the, the consent of the, such, East Asian countries, that it is very difficult to make it happen. As the achieving the net zero by 2050, meaning that the more than 50,000 ships all over the world, maybe 60,000 in 2050, I don't know. But such number of the vessels have to be, replaced by new net zero emission fueled ships, or have to have a major modification. That is a big work, and we don't have much time left. And also that IMO is a United Nations agencies, but consisted of the 176 countries at this moment. There are so many different countries, from the advanced countries to the developing countries and small islands and so on. And so to have the same principle, it is very difficult. That the shipping is a global business, and we have to work on a single rule. So the IMO is the only United Nations agency have a ruling capacity, and so that for that purpose that Japan is expected to propose the realistic ideas to IMO, which not just by the government but also the opinion of the private sectors. That what is the reality in the shipping, and what is the reality in the shipbuilding, or not just the technology but also for the from the operational side also. But from that sense, that I'm working very closely with the Japanese government, and Japan is trying to improve the IMO's the pace of discussion. And our company was founded in 1985, so it's already that 136 years. And just on the this year's foundation day, that our foundation day is October 1st, MIK has revised our 2050 target to net zero. We have the SBTI certified, approved GHG reduction plans, but it was based on a 2-degree scenario. The IMO's current agreed target for the 2030 and 2050 is also based on a 2-degree scenario, so that's to decrease the gross emission to half by 2050. But also with some remarks that's to try to achieve the net zero within this century as soon as possible. And discussion will start again from the 22nd of November this month about the revision of the midterm and long-term targets, so that with Japan and Japan will be, I hope that we lead a discussion. And so that our emission in itself is outside of the Paris Agreement, but our emission, scope 1 emission, is a scope 3 emission of our customers. And many of our customers are Japanese companies. And so that we are, to promote our activities for the decarbonization. The customers' understanding and the support is most important. So from that sense, that to work together with JCI, with other Japanese companies is very important. So from that sense, that this year in April, as I remember, that we participated the joint statement of the JCI to ask to push our governments to increase their ambition. And that request is, I don't know how much impact or influence to the government, but Japanese government revised their ambition, very according to our request. That was a very good thing for all of us.
Thank you, Max. And yes, we've seen this impressive letter signed by more than 290 Japanese actors, and it's definitely helped increase the ambition of the Japanese national climate policies. And I'm sure in the future you'll have the opportunity to increase yours also in contact with other Japanese actors. I will now turn to another part of the world and another sector, energy, with Martin D'Apello, a member of the Board of Director and Financing Committee Coordinator of CADER, Argentina. So you're here representing the Alliance for Climate Action in Argentina. And I'm interested to know how working with the Alliance has helped you, a bit the same question as I did to your colleague in Japan, helped you refine and increase your own climate ambition, and has contributed, of course, to Argentina's national climate targets and policies.
Okay. Hello, Emmanuel. Thanks. I want to thank all the Panda team, especially Mariana, Carlos, and Daniela. I'm very glad to be here. Well, CADER is an organization with more than 100 members, founded 13 years ago, and with different size companies. We have small and big companies, and we represent all the renewable technologies and located in every sector in the value of chain. We could say that CADER is the most important referent of renewable energies in Argentina. We are a key interlocutor interacting between public and private sector actors and academic institutions. And so, to achieve the climate objectives assumed by our country, it is necessary to expand the renewable energy generation goals. 20% by 2025 is not enough. We must reach at least 35% to 2035. We know that commitment assumed in the new NDCs will not be enough to achieve the emission reduction target to 2030. Governments shouldn't have to do everything. For the first time in history, the Paris Agreement calls on the private sector to take action on the matter. The private sector must take the initiative and implement large and small-scale projects. What governments should focus on is in creating an environment in which the private sector can flourish. That means having the necessary policies, regulations, and grants, and being able to attract new investors. That's why CADER has joined the Alliance, because we think that we are strong together. It's necessary to elevate our voices to defeat the barriers that we have. During 2021, we have worked on the publication of the policy brief, which contains a set of proposals to contribute with inputs which have been recognized and reflected in Argentina's new NDCs. The energy sector in Argentina represents more than 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions, making it a strategic sector to achieve the emissions reduction goals for 2030 and decarbonization for 2050. With the synergy of the Alliance signatories, we are developing a project to increase the distributed generation users. The goal of the project is targeted to small companies which are part of the value chain of the big company, so that they could achieve access the implementation of renewable energies. Small companies have fewer opportunities to evaluate and analyze the implementation of renewable energy generation systems, perhaps because they have other short-term priorities. They neither have access to financing with interest rates and terms according to the needs of the projects. The key point here is that we should not continue evaluating projects as business as usual. The financial sector must be creative and analyze new sustainable business, putting a value on positive externalities. Finally, I want to say that Argentina has unbeatable natural resources for development of renewable energies, which place it among the countries with the greatest potential worldwide for the development. However, it's necessary to identify the barriers and obstacles that they currently do not allow its full development. We need an improvement in the economic situation, developing local financial tools, and access to international financing. We need a long-term strategy that I think that is one of the most important barriers to overcome and progress towards more sustainable energy system, more ambitious and in line with 1.5 degrees. In times in the fourth industrial revolution, politics must act faster and accept the challenge, or it will be too late. Thanks.
Muchas gracias, Martin. I think we're all aware of the crucial debate on energy in Argentina. It's so important to have voices of the renewable energy sector come into this debate. Thank you very much for your action. Now back to Asia. I'm delighted to welcome Mrs. Huong Thi Lang Hong, Deputy Director General of the Vietnam Institute of Meteorology, Hydrology and Climate Change, representing today the Vietnam Alliance for Climate Action, a very active alliance and coalition. So,
ahí figura como una deuda de 23.000, o sea que es como que no se hubiese pagado la
of net zero by 2050 for Vietnam here in Glasgow a few days ago at the World Leaders Summit. Can you tell us how you see this goal, obviously, and the efforts that have been done by the Vietnamese Alliance for Climate Action to get to this announcement? I know you've been very mobilized on the topic.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Huong from the Institute of Meteorology, Hydrology and Climate Change. Our institute is a leading institute in the field of hydrology, meteorology, and climate change. So we've been involved in climate change since 1990, and our institute developed climate change scenario for Vietnam, and also we provide technical support for many legal documents related to climate change in Vietnam, such as green growth strategy, climate change strategy, and also NDC. And IMEPLAN is an active member for VCCA in Vietnam, actively supporting and strengthening capacity in climate change adaptation and also GHG emission reduction for members, promoting the goal of net zero in the long-term strategy at national and also local level. Therefore, our institute has agreed and actively contribute to VCCA strategy and activity to promote climate change mitigation, lobbying for more ambitious commitment in GHG reductions in Vietnam. VCCA and engaged in the NDC revision process with aiming to transfer the message of higher ambition of NDC since 1990. And the development of green growth strategy development process with concrete suggestions, participate in public events, and engage with the media to highlight the importance of the net zero by 2050 transition for Vietnam. During the process of updating NDC and developing the green growth strategy and also climate change strategy, our institute and VCCA have worked together to bring net zero commitment to the documents, the legal document, especially through policy advocacy workshop, statement, and also the speech in the national television. In the policy advocacy message in Vietnam, VCCA and also our institute always emphasize that the needs was very important to make net zero as a national priority in Vietnam. And as Emmanuel says, that our Prime Minister has committed our targets for net zero as follow. With our resources, along with the cooperation and support from the international community, we will try to achieve the net emission equal zero to 1950. And our institute and VCCA organize a number of activities on communication, advocacy, capacity building, information sharing for not only VCCI member, but also for the manager, scientific and officer working on climate change at local level. Also private sector and we communication on the important, very important, and the direct towards net zero is inevitable and recommendation to make net zero commitment in the reality. We also recommend the solution to make the action will be the reality. And currently, relevant policies such as NDC and also green growth strategy and climate change strategy and power planning number 8 have not yet set out the goal and the roadmap in line with the net zero target, net zero goal. So as a member of VCCA and also playing as important role in technical support and policy advocacy, our institute and VCCA will continue to work with the government to update and develop the national NDC and green growth strategy and also climate change strategy to make a plan to achieve the net zero targets. We also enhance and advocate the subnational level to develop the net zero targets on their plan. And to start this process, we are going to organize the international event on tomorrow, on the 10th November, with speakers from VCCI member joining COP26 and around 15 province, city, and about 100 Vietnamese and international delegates to talk about the net zero and the roadmap to achieve the net zero from the subnational level. And the conference will host on the Zoom platform, and VCCA member attending COP26 will share live from Glasgow with national and subnational speakers to promote political will for net zero. This is something I would like to say with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Wong, and I love that you finish your intervention speaking of the ambition of subnational and cities. C40 has 2 members in Vietnam, the city of Ho Chi Minh and the city of Hanoi, who are effectively in the process of publishing their 1.5 climate action plans. We are very proud of this. And I think I want to congratulate you on the success of your advocacy for net zero in Vietnam. And I'm sure now you're going to start working on the 2030 target, which is, as we all know, the next very important step to get to net zero. Talking about subnational government, I'm very happy to welcome Kelly King, the chair of the Climate Action Resilience Environment Committee of the Maui County in Hawaii, and a member of ICLE, I've seen, United States. So you're here to represent America is All In, the new name of the Alliance for Climate Action in the USA. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here again. And I love this venue. Our America is All In is exciting this year because last year it was America is Still In. And we all know that our previous president took us out. So Maui County was one of the first communities to actually declare that we were all in with the Paris Agreement. Our state has actually, because we're at the forefront of climate change, and we are the only fully island state in America, and the furthest away from civilization, you know, by plane or by boat. We started working on this in the mid-2000s, and the first was a declaration by our then Governor Linda Lingle in 2008 called the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, that we would be, by 2030, 70% renewable. But some of that was determined to come, 30% of that was determined to come from efficiencies and conservation. And then when Governor Ige came in 2015, we went to 100% renewable by 2045. So that's still our goal in Hawaii. And you know, I really think that some of us communities who have the ability to do this have to work quicker, because we have to make up for some of the communities that are stalling or aren't quite all in. So I wanted to go over some of the goals that the state of Hawaii has for 2030. So by 2030, we will have 100% net zero operating emissions government buildings. We will have 100% zero emission light duty public fleets. We will have 100% emission public government-owned transit bus fleets by 2030. We will conserve at least 30% of the land and coastal waters by 2030. And we will have increased consumption of food produced within the jurisdiction by at least 30% by 2030. And this is really important because food security is a huge issue in Hawaii. Everything is shipped in. From that, what Maui County is doing, you know, we're really working, this is the framework for the counties to start jumping in and making our own ordinances and policies. And so what we've done is we've got about 8 contracts out right now for Maui County, creating our resilience plan and our climate action plan. And we've got data gathering contracts, we've got resilient housing contracts out, and we've got an actual comprehensive affordable housing plan now that we just finished, that we're going through. And part of that is folding in climate action. I've actually got in my district the first affordable rental project that we've had in decades, because it's been so necessary to get, for the lowest income people, 60% of the area median income and lower. And that is actually LEED certified gold at the gold level. On affordable housing, where people under $30,000, making under $30,000 a year, can get a 2-bedroom house or a 2-bedroom apartment for $511 a month. You can make that LEED certified. You can do it on any other building. There's no excuse not to do it anywhere else. So those are some of the things we're working on. We're also looking forward to President Biden's Build Back Better plan passing. The infrastructure money is so important to a community like ours and other communities, especially coastal communities across the U.S., because we have managed retreat issues. We have to start moving facilities and infrastructure away from the coast. And some of them are already peppered with sandbags and eroding. So we have those urgent issues as well. I'm going to stop there because my time is up, but thank you so much for this panel. I really appreciate being able to talk about this.
Thank you, Councillor King. Unfortunately, we don't have more time to do a second round of discussion where we will join all the voices of local government, national institute, energy sector, and shipping sector. But I think it gives us a sense of the power of the alliances, the variety of actors, and really the power they have when they work together. So I'll close on this note. Thank you for your attention, and over to you, Mark.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists for great discussion. Thank you, Emma. And I'd like to welcome now to the stage a couple of special guests to give our closing remarks. We have joining us here Florencia Mitchell, the National Director of Climate Change for the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development for the Government of Argentina. And we also have Minister Michael Matheson, the Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero Energy and Transport for the Government of Scotland. So I'll hand it over to you for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for inviting me and having me here doing some closing remarks. I started taking notes from all the expositions before and trying to make maybe a summary of everything, but I think what I can say the most is I've been thinking all the time while you were all speaking, what's the role of the national decision makers in that sense, seeing so many actors doing so many things. How do we do from the national governments to put everything together, to sit everyone in the same path and given a common vision that makes or that assures that all the things we are doing, all in our own responsibilities and in our own roles, assures that it goes for the well-being of everyone and leaves no one behind. How can we do that? And I think that there, the national governments, we have the responsibility to set a clear vision. Where are we going and how are we going there? And making a broad path so we can all get in that path. We can put all our initiatives in there and enhance the results every initiative you've been telling us about has. Oh, sorry, that was my fault, I think. Because what we're talking about here is systemic change. Well, we've been hearing about cultural change, educational change, financial change. We've been talking about finance a lot in this COP. We have to rethink everything. And from the politics side, we have to rethink how we design, implement, and control and review our national policies. And we have to rethink especially how we design it, keeping into account everything you have all said before me. We have to make public policies, long-term public policy, multidimensional, cross-cutting. There's a lot of dimensions we have to take into consideration. And for such a change, we need everyone in. We need to sit everyone on the table. And we are not still everyone. We have seen a lot of actors here, but there's a lot of people we have to make come in and join us in this struggle that's a big challenge. And I see every one of you, each of you, as Galeano, an Uruguayan writer says, like a small flame that can put in fire someone else, and all together we can make a big fire. And if you haven't read Galeano, I said you should find him and read him. It's a very good writer. So everyone should be bigger. We should be more than the ones we are sitting right here. It's a lot. We've gone through a very long path. We have done a lot, but there's still a lot to do to sit everyone in the table. Well, Sarah told us in the presentation how we can involve and engage new trusted voices. And I think that's something very useful and something very important to do, because we've been talking about, sometimes I have that feeling that we've been talking about each other for a long time now, and we have to engage other actors and engage them deeply. In Argentina, we started doing this with the National Cabinet of Climate Change. The Argentinian Alliance for Climate Change is doing a lot with us, is presenting, giving us their comments, and helping us to reach all those other voices we want to hear. And that's something we really appreciate. But as I said before, there's a long way to go still. Because in this situation, it's very hard to understand where to start. The challenge is so big, the things to do are so many, that where to start is always the difficult question. And I think that here we don't have one place to start. We have to approach it from every single space we have. And for us, as national governments, as I said at the beginning, what we have to do is being humble and understand that there's a lot of people doing lots of things, and how we can put everything together and enhance the results and the effectiveness and efficiency with the things we are doing. The challenge for us is to integrate everything that is going on in the territories, from the subnational level, from the different sectors, from the universities, from every person itself, how we can put everything together and make it bigger. And as Galeano said, how we make that fire bigger and bigger every time. So I encourage you to keep pushing us forward, to keep pushing national governments and decision makers going forward, and enhance our ambition and how we face climate change in our own countries. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you so much for that, and bringing home how the connections back to the national government. And Minister Matheson, I'd like to thank you for the warm welcome I felt in Scotland, and invite some closing remarks here.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And for those just arriving in Scotland, a very warm welcome to you, even if it's a bit chilly outside. Look, can I say to you that I think in what is a decisive decade about whether the world is prepared to take the necessary action to avert the climate crisis which we face, all actors have to play their part in making sure that we have the level of leadership and the level of policy ambition that can help to avert the twin crises of climate change and biodiversity loss. And if I take a brief moment just to put in context where we are in Scotland on that particular journey, given that you are here in Glasgow. So in Scotland, our statutory target is we must reach net zero by 2045. We must get to 75% reductions by 2030, just over 8+ years to go. So our statutory targets are extremely tough, and we have to report on an annual basis on the progress that we are making. So where are we on that particular journey? So Scotland right now is over halfway on the road to becoming a net zero nation. The figures for last year were that we are now at 51.5% on our 1990 baseline. So we're making good progress, but are we doing enough? Absolutely not. Do we need to do more? Yes, we need to do more in a number of very significant areas. But if I give you some practical illustrations of the journey we've been on over the course of the last 10 years alone in one particular area, in decarbonising our energy systems. Now in Scotland, almost 100% of our domestic electricity comes from renewable sources, by and large from wind and hydroelectric, and we have got significant ambitions to push that even further to export it to the rest of the UK and into Europe as well. But as we go forward in trying to meet our net zero targets, at times it can feel quite a lonely road. As the Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero, I'm often challenged on what further action are we going to take in order to make sure that we meet our statutory targets. How are you going to achieve that? And the reality is that we don't have all the answers. And in my view, it is absolutely critical that we work with international partners in understanding the actions they're taking, how we can learn from them, and how we can also share our experience with them in helping to support them in their own net zero journey. And in Scotland, the Scottish Government is a member of the Under 2 Coalition, which represents what's often referred to as subnational governments, city governments and other regional authorities, collectively working together to identify the approach we can take to tackling climate change. It now represents over 2 billion people across the world and almost 50% of the world's GDP. The reality is we're not in the room negotiating the outcome from COP26. But the reality is when it comes to delivering on international treaties, it may not be our signature, but we'll be the ones responsible for taking forward the actions to deliver on the implementation. And that's why this decade, when I hear global leaders in Glasgow saying, this is a decisive decade, this must be the decade of delivery, who exactly are you engaging with and who are you working with to ensure that we get that delivery right? And I think the challenge we have over the course of the next couple of years is to make sure the voices of what is often referred to again as the subnational governments, the city-states, the regional authorities, who will be critical to the delivery of any international treaties and the measures which are necessary to avert both of the crises which we face, is that their voices must be heard and their central role in tackling climate change must be understood and more widely recognised. And I say that in a sense where it's not because I'm frustrated that it's not heard at the present moment, but I think collectively we all need to work together to amplify our voice and also to set out very clearly how ambitious our agenda is. One of the real mistakes that world leaders and states can make is to think that tackling climate change is just something we have to do by signing up on an international treaty. It is much, much, much more complex than that. And the reality is, to affect climate change properly, we need to take people with us. Because achieving net zero is not an end in its own, it is a journey that we are on and where we need to share our experiences. But we also need to take people with us to ensure that we deliver a just and fair transition to becoming a net zero society. And again, those sub-state actors that are closest to the people who will be impacted by that are very often subnational governments, city-states and regional authorities. And in my view, they will be absolutely critical to making sure that we not only take forward the right policies, but that we also deliver a just and fair transition as we go forward over the coming decades. Just yesterday, I was with the Secretary for Environment and Nature from California, who said we should stop talking about sub-state nations. We should start talking about what we need is supranational action. Not state national action, but supranational action. All layers of government playing their part in tackling the twin crises we face, while at the same time internationally recognising the important role that all layers have in contributing towards our journey to becoming net zero nations. So I hope that from the discussion that you've heard here this afternoon, that you will take away a very clear message, one which is about the importance of delivering on our climate ambitions and the important role that all nations have at every level of government, and that they are critical to helping to support and delivering a just and fair transition to becoming net zero societies. And I hope that you will spread that word when you leave Glasgow, and that you will support those who are trying to make their voices heard in ensuring that all layers of government are given recognition and support in achieving their net zero ambitions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Matheson. Thank you, Florencia, for connecting that back up to the big picture. And I'd like to thank all of the panelists who joined us today. Thank all you here who joined us in Glasgow and online. Emma, I'd like to thank Mariana and her team at WWF and the U.S. Climate Action Center. And just say, yeah, have a wonderful rest of your COP26, and let's do this together.